And then the third one is flying. I really like Sachan's flight system in VRChat. Sachan's flight system is the one that's used in Test Pilots, which is Sachan's world. There's a huge community of people that build worlds based off of that, right? So like F-14 carrier is one of my favorite ones. It's by Dwight Kaku and 7-Eleven. That one's great.
Welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
Oh my man, baby. I'm Old Man Raptor. We got one hell of a guest today, and it is.
Hi, I'm Tupper. I'm the head of community for VRChat.
Oh wow! Again, thank you for coming on and chatting with us. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to meet you. So thank you.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, no worries. As I mentioned, I've seen your other interviews, and I had Gravekeeper specifically is a friend of mine, and he was like, "You need to talk to this guy," and went and looked at my DMs, and I was like, "Okay, I'll go talk to this guy." And you'd already sent me 2 messages that I hadn't seen, and it's a common story, all right.
That's okay. I'm sure you get a lot. I'm sure you get a lot of them.
I do, but Discord's also really aggressive at filtering your messages. Like, I think if they notice that you get a ton of DMs, like, it really gets aggro on filtering stuff and shoving it into message requests. Like, that entire thing is just full, and I just check it every week. Yeah, it's, I don't know how I feel about that feature, but, you know.
Well, let's start with the first couple of questions, which, how did you get into VR and VRChat? And you've already answered what you're known for. How did you even get in here?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I'm known for now for working for VRChat, doing all kinds of community stuff. Head up the community team at VRChat. But I got into VRChat. Actually, is the question got into VR or into VRChat? Because those are two different.
Yes.
Vaguely related things.
Oh fuck! You're already fucking up the person already. What the hell?
Well, okay.
I gotta start thinking about it now. Wait a minute. Is that we've been doing this wrong all this time? Is he going one way or no? Okay.
Well, we can merge it together. It's totally fine. I don't know. We can. So I didn't get in like as a lot of the like really, I guess, old bees is kind of the nice way of putting it, got into VR, right? Where they were picking up like the DK1 and the DK2 and like developing really early on. That was more Graham and Jesse's jam. I came in, our CEO, CTR, co-founders at VRChat. I got in, I remember in 2016, or maybe a little bit before that, I was living on the East Coast, and HTC was doing a tour, like they were dragging a tractor trailer around, where they were doing demos of the VR experience, right? And they were working with Valve. And at the time, like, HTC to me was just like, oh, they're just a phone vendor, I don't really care. But I've always been a Valve fanboy, right? Like Half-Life, and that's actually kind of the main thing I like from them. But like Steam and like their entire company, I'm a big fan of. They're great. They are the picture perfect like solution of like what should a company aim for in the long run, if you know everything works out in the end. But anyways, went to that demo. My parents happened to be visiting, so we went to that and tried out the lab demo, and I was like, oh hell yeah, I'll buy this. My mom and dad also tried it. My mom, if you remember the demo, there were a couple different segments to it. My dad really liked the one where you pull apart the portal robot and it like explodes it out, because he's like car maintenance guy. He used to be a crew chief in the Air Force, and he saw that.
Look on the bright side.
This is what's that?
Yeah, whatever we do, no matter what, at least we don't know the cops ain't coming to your house. Just heard the siren in the background.
Oh yeah, no, I have a, I don't know what it is, but something that has sirens comes by me quite often. I think I'm like on a main line, but either way, okay. I'll see. Oh, maybe I have noise cancellation. Let's try turning that on.
Damn, I got nothing to pick on.
My mom tried it out as well, but there was one part of the demo where like the floor drops out from underneath you after that particular part. She ripped the headset off and was like, no thank you, no, don't like this. So that was a fun time. You know, zero experience for VR with them. But anyways, got into VR. I eventually purchased both the Vive and the Rift, decided which one I liked, and then resold the one I didn't like. And that was the Rift. I didn't like the Rift because it didn't have, the whole room thing. And I made enough to be able to pay for the Vive and then some because it was like, the rush for that kind of stuff. So anyways, tried out a bunch of different VR applications. I tried just basically anything that was on the Steam store, bought a bunch of different things. Nothing really stuck up until I found, until I found Anyland. And Anyland is it's very similar to VRChat in the social aspects. You join a 3D space and there's like worlds and stuff you can go to. But the way you build stuff is with primitives. Like you pick up a cube and you can like physically stretch it.
Oh.
And you can change the dimensions of it. And you can spawn a sphere or an icosphere or a pyramid. Sorry if my tracking's freaking out. I'm like flipping out from my view. But
it's all good. Mine's doing the same thing.
Okay. Good. Maybe it's must be a bug. We'll figure that out. But the thing that really hooked me, like I'd played MMOs for decades, right? Like I played originally things like Ragnarok Online, Diablo, which isn't really an MMO, but still. And then World of Warcraft for 15 years. Also played EVE Online, played a couple of other games. And what I realized eventually is I really like the social aspect of those things. Gameplay I don't give a shit about, really. Like I could leave it. And then I found Anyland and I was like, oh my god, this is almost it. It's not quite right. It's almost it. Probably because there weren't that many people playing it. But the people that were there were very creative. And then kind of put it down, like work got busy or something at the time. And then a little bit later in 2017, I started digging around the Steam store again. I was just sitting at home, like not doing anything. And I went and I just organized by free. I just went to Steam, went to the VR section, clicked on free, and I was like, there we go, VRChat. That looks simple. So that was July 2017, and I installed it and I tried it out, and talked to some people, learned that you can make custom avatars, custom worlds. Went to the presentation room, saw people communicating, like people that weren't speaking but communicating by literally writing in space. How can I express this properly? I was so enthusiastic for basically how all of that was set up and presented. I was at that time DMing a D&D campaign. I immediately dropped the campaign. Like 4 players, 4 like friends I still have. I was just like, yeah, I'm not gonna DM anymore. I got this to deal with now. So eventually, thankfully, they forgave me. But yeah, I got in a VR chat from there. Just kind of made tons of friends. The first thing I kind of got known for was making tutorial videos for VRChat avatars.
Oh.
It was really hard to make avatars for VRChat. Still is really hard to make avatars for VRChat. But back then there was you couldn't go to booth. There was no booth. There was no Gumroad. There was no Jinxie. There was no nothing. So a lot of the problems were, hold on, let's move this, see if that fixes my tracking. A lot of the problems I was having, or people were having, is like sourcing avatars, right? Like where the hell do you go to find models? Even like to buy them or download them or whatever. A lot of people were using like game rips. I mean, they still do, but Neptunia in particular was a very common one to use because it was an anime styled game and people wanted to use the anime aesthetic. But I knew about MMD. And MMD is it's called Miku Miku Dance. It is basically a system where you have a 3D model of an anime girl and you can create these animations set to music and then they dance. And then you can save the dance files, the motion capture, send it to other people and they can make their own videos, right? But there's 3D models of characters, of Hatsune Miku and tons of other characters that people have made fan works of. And there's this whole ecosystem of people like kit bashing stuff from those. And I was like, wait a minute, I could figure out how to do this. And some people had figured it out. They hadn't really shared knowledge that much. So I researched around and I figured out a process. I documented it, turned it into an 1 and 40-minute long video, and posted it. And people used it. And all of a sudden you just started seeing MMDs pop up in VRChat everywhere. And VRChat slowly turned into, I think, what was it? I can't exactly remember the exact quote. I'll have to look it up, but at some point that eventually resulted in someone calling VRChat a neon anime nightmare, which is such a great phrase that we still have an emote in our Slack that is just like a rainbow scrolling rainbow anime girl with her hands in her face. But
Oh,
yeah,
God.
that's how I got into VR chat.
Oh, wow.
Getting my job was a different story, but yeah, I also have that one.
Oh, well, but is there any, well, camera, is there any distance between when you started doing the YouTube videos for avatars and getting a job? What happened in the in-between state? What kinds of things were you doing? How did you interact with VR
Oh
chat?
yeah. Yeah. So that was a blur. At the time, I was working full-time job. I was doing data analysis for the U.S. Navy, not in the Navy, but as a contractor. And so I would come home from essentially an office job, and I would almost immediately log into VRChat or open up Unity, work on an avatar. Someone had a cool idea during the day, so we would, maybe iterate on, something. One of them was like, hey, I found a way to get music files into Blender and then use music to drive different shapes and create an animation. Some of the first audio reactive avatars, not the very first, but some of the first. So we would experiment, play around. People were really like hacky with the systems that were in there because not much was purpose built in VR chat like it is today. You had dynamic bones instead of fizz bones. Full body tracking didn't come till August of 2017. There weren't like there were no toggles. Avatars like didn't have customizations and things like that. So we played around. I spent more time making videos as well. And for the months between July and December, I basically just like got really in deep into just like typical, I almost call it like the typical pipeline into VR chat, right? Like you hang out with friends and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, I can watch movies with friends or TV shows with friends or whatever. So I had a, period of time where we would sit in VR chat and watch anime or something. And then after we got done with that, I realized, wait a minute. I mean, I'm not the type to go out to bars and drink and have fun with friends, but I can totally do it here. And like 90% of my fears are gone. I don't have to worry about getting home at night. So, had a couple nights where we just put on, whatever YouTube playlist or whatever, and we just like had fun. It was like a club. Before DJing was very common in VR chat. I think DDVR was basically the only group around that was doing any kind of event at that point, and I didn't know DDVR. So, yeah, a lot of that. Just making friends, that kind of stuff. Despite 3 base stations pointed at me right now, I am still losing tracking repeatedly. What is going on?
Well,
but
the good question is, do you have any shiny
the
objects in your room? Cups, bowls,
I
a monitor?
I have so many monitors in here, dude. Yeah, I have
Oh, wow.
I have it is the hackiest, shittiest home lab in existence, probably in this room. But that aside, I spent 6 months doing that, and during that time, VRChat's CCU just started like climbing up, like concurrent users, number of users online. And we went from like when I started VRChat, it was like maybe 60 people on a busy night. That's like a Thursday, Friday night, that kind of thing. And then by October, that had grown to like 200-300. November, it's 1,000. December, almost 10,000. So it hockey sticked real quick. And that was mostly because of streamers, right? Like we had Soda Poppin' come in, XQC come in, like all the wonderful names of streamers and that kind of cadre during 2017, late 2017. But behavior aside, they did bring a lot of people to VR chat, and of course, Knuckles was a much smaller meme before like the whole like, do you know the way kind of thing. It was just what was it? It was the opening to Mash. It just like suicide is painless, whatever. He would just go around the guy who made it tidiest flyer, like he made the model and then made the joke of that, and that was basically it. But people took that and people started raiding like worlds because like not cloning, we didn't have cloning then. Everybody having the same avatar and then going places to basically disrupt it in some way was a thing. If you remember Kitten Marching Band or whatever, that was another one. That was a much more wholesome one. It's just a bunch of cats in a row like playing a very cute song, and they would just march and play the song. Anyways, I got big. and all of a sudden VRChat found itself inundated by people, and the person that was answering their technical support emails, I think was just VR Pill at the time. Like, it was just Pill, and that was it. And I love Pill. Like, he's a great guy. He's not very technically inclined. He will be the first to tell you that. So he was like, I can't do this anymore. I got other stuff to do. We need to pick somebody up. And apparently my resume like was on top of the pile, because I had talked to Ron, at the time was CCO, Chief Creative Officer of VRChat. And I talked to him for like 3 hours, surrounded by like a bunch of very critical and like foundational people of early VRChat community. We just kind of shot the shit about all kinds of ideas, including groups, which, hey, that showed up, including a couple of other ideas. And yeah, I guess I made an impression because, yeah, they called me up and say, hey, can you work here? So for a month in January, I worked 2 jobs. Don't tell my old job, but I worked 2 jobs. I did basically part-time like support stuff, and I still worked my full-time job. So that was a very exhausting January. And then by the end of it, I discovered, yeah, okay, no, I'm going whole hog, right? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it right. And yeah, went full VRChat from there. Kind of climbed the ladder and then somehow ended up here. I'll let you know what I am supposed to be doing here when I figure it out. But you know,
Fair. So I've got a bunch of questions for you, but I will start with the
please.
earlier stuff you've mentioned. What initially made you want to start doing videos back when you first got started? What drove you to start the YouTube channel that led you through that journey?
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is actually something I've struggled with for a long period of time. I am a terrible artist. I have trouble creating things. I'm a decent writer, and Straz is going to murder me when I speak of myself even just as that. But like I'm an okay writer, but writing for me is like really personal and very specific, and it didn't really mesh with something I could contribute, right? But I knew how to edit videos, and I had a totally legitimate copy of Premiere on my computer. And I was like, I'm also technically inclined. I can figure this out. I can, you know, I can write a process. I can document this out, which is related to my old job. So I did that, and the reason I did it is because there were so many people that when I did it myself and I brought in my avatar, my original one, which was a Toho avatar. It was Flandra Scarlet. Just basically this anime girl with these big like crystal wings on her back. Completely messed up fingers. But that's okay. I fixed that later. People were like, "How did you do that? You need to like show me." And I was like, "I'm not going to individually like walk you through stuff." And I think this was even before Discord had screen sharing, so that wasn't a possibility, right? Like you can't just hop on a screen share and tell people. So I documented it and made the video, and people found it really helpful, and I felt it made me feel good. It made me happy that people learned from me. And I was like, okay, I can just roll with that. I will chase this dopamine loop.
Okay.
But yeah.
How has during that time when you were making videos for VRChat change how you thought about the game?
It contributed to it. Initially, I thought of avatars as, I want to say novelty, but even that probably isn't quite right. Right? It was something that you just had on. It was something that you wore, not on like a skin in like Fortnite or something like that. Right? It's just, I think this looks cool, so I will wear it, and that's it. But over time, I saw and realized that some of the things I had realized and seen in playing like World of Warcraft, I played on role-playing servers, which is where I learned how to write, by the way. But I realized that a lot of people tend to take on aspects of the character that they're playing. And some people like that so much that they actually change themselves because they feel more comfortable in those new aspects that they've invented, right? And that's like Control-C, Control-V VRChat, like almost exactly. And you can see that in a lot of different cases. And I mean, speaking bluntly, there are people that like they come in here and they are biologically one gender and they wear an avatar that does not match, and like, wow, this feels better and I don't know why. And then it's just like a giant, roller coaster ride all the way through. People are able to discover themselves, identify themselves, and however they see fit, and kind of initially test that comfort out. And then, they can, it helps people make an informed decision. And I realized that over time, as like a couple of my friends went through that kind of personal journey. And it's interesting because for me, from a personal standpoint, like I'm pretty comfortable with my identity and how I identify myself rather. And being able to watch it and hear their thoughts and experiences on it, and then them relate it so much back to their avatar. Like, I didn't realize this until I wore this avatar, or when you guys started seeing me as this avatar, like, this is you, and it made sense to me. I was like, oh, this works for some folks. So yeah, that's a big motivator. The technical kind of dopamine loop of teaching people stuff certainly is a factor. But yeah, avatars are really important. Jesse actually saw that earlier than anybody else. He was the person, again, our CTO. He implemented the custom avatar system like as one of the first major feature additions to VRChat, and probably changed a lot of lives with that one simple action. So, yeah.
I can very much imagine. I've heard that story many a time myself from people on and off camera. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Was that an expected result, or that kind of interaction with avatars from people when that was applied?
So I don't want to speak on behalf of Jesse. So maybe, hopefully, one day you can get him on board. But I think like the way he talks about it early on is he says that you can't really build a virtual universe or a metaverse. I don't know if we were calling it at that time, without having avatars, without having like the ability to customize your identity, yourself, your appearance. It's a component of basically all of the super hackneyed, over-referenced, like Snow Crash, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But it's just always there. It's always a really critical part of any one of those narratives. And it's, it's kind of a result of a lot of aggregate thought, is why it appears so often there. Like it's not just a choice because it's cool. I mean, it is cool in those particular like literary universes, but also the author has thought out, like, of course this makes sense, in this universe where this kind of identity is important because this is how I see the world going, then of course this is how it works out. So I think probably not intentional. I think the intent was just simply, of course we have to have this, duh. But I don't think it's unwelcome. It's probably one of the most powerful aspects of VRChat, identity, along with social and other things like that, and creativity. Identity is something that it is very important that we're able to always let people have control over.
Okay. So I had a really weird short question to ask, because you mentioned a metaverse.
Yeah.
What does VRChat consider itself? Is it to consider itself a metaverse or something else? Because I hear that term all the time.
Yeah, I've got to think up the proper term here. I believe like the full like 2-breath version is like massively multiplayer, user-generated content social platform. Right?
Yeah.
Shit, I'd fuck that up in a wet dream. Holy fucking shit.
Yeah, no, it is an attempt to say anything except metaverse. But unfortunately, that term has been co-opted and means something significantly different than what all of us understand it to be. But yeah, I mean, like, immersive, synchronous social platform might be a different way of doing it. I don't know. That just feels like spatial computing, just made up stuff because you want to have something different. Metaverse is probably fine. I think it's just my contrarian nature coming to head.
Okay. So there's another question I asked more or less because I'd feel pretty dumb not asking. But where did VRChat come from?
I think, I mean, it was something that Graham was really passionate about, right? I recall specifically, like I've talked to him about it, and I've read other interviews that he's done and stuff about it, which is an interesting way to learn information from someone you've been working with for half a decade. But still, it is a project that he felt was always really important and really necessary given like the technology, right? It's like you have a VR headset, you have internet access. It's like having a text editor on a computer. It's like, of course this has to be here. It's a very natural use case. It's a very like important kind of core usage of this type of technology that lets you be immersed completely, right? And I get that, right? Like it's also, it's probably pretty telling that there's a lot of different people trying to do the same thing. You've got Horizon Worlds, you've got Resonite, you've got a bunch of different platforms that are trying to do slightly different versions of the same thing. So, yeah, I think it's just kind of a wish to build the place that can fill those core values, those core like pillars that I mentioned a couple of. I think that's the why of creating VRChat.
Okay. So going
I
back,
got a question for him, Lynn.
Shoot.
I got a question. I gotta ask my regular question before we go too far. When you came into VR, and you got where you were pretty much doing it regular and everything. What was the weirdest thing that you saw world hopping and come up on and you're just going, whoa, okay, sure.
Oh man, that specific reaction. I like that you put the reaction exactly like that, right? Like, whoa, okay, sure. It's like a, I get it, not for me. Is that kind of the reaction?
Yeah,
you're
pretty much
talking
going,
about?
okay, I got it. But you had to take a double take going,
Yeah.
are they, oh, great. Yeah.
Oh man.
That
Yeah.
type of reaction.
Oh man, that's a tough question because like I'm a pretty open-minded person, right? Like, and I try to be not to talk, talk shit about your method of reaction, but I try not to react to stuff that's might be taken the wrong way by someone who's like in a vulnerable position, whatever. But that being said, there have been things where I'm just like, oh, good for you. It's hard to name specific things.
Good for you. Good for you. I hope you have a nice day. I'm going the fuck this way. Excuse my, I'm out of here. Excuse my ass. I know that feeling.
Yeah, there's like, as there's a lot of like thought I put to identity and stuff like that. So people want to identify or look a certain way, things like that. There are people who for whatever reason have identified themselves as certain exaggerated, qualities or whatever. There are certain cases of those exaggerated qualities, and I'm being, oh man, this is the full PR face on right now, where it's just like, that's great. I'm very glad that you're happy. But this scares me slightly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take that as it comes.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of shit on here and I've been on here for 6 years.
Oh yeah.
I've seen yeah. And what's funny is you do that thing that you look back and you got to make sure you process it before you jump.
Right.
Because you want to make sure
you're never going to see it again.
No, but because usually I jump the line going, hey, Lion, I just saw this, blah, 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 and everything else. And where are you going to find it again? It's not going to be there like it's holding up a countertop that where you put your coffee pot on. It doesn't work that way, Right. But yeah, some of the stuff that you see in here, and it overwhelms you sometimes, and you're just going, yep. And I'm one of them because I say some of the weirdest shit and everything. And people look at me like, what the hell? My biggest thing is people ask me, what the hell are you doing on here? You're 55 years of age. Why can't I get the same question? Oh, you're old enough to be my dad. Or why are you on here? Why can't I be? That's the biggest one that, it was designed for everybody. and it just freaks you out, and people you just stand there going, why does everybody ask the same question over and over again? It was just one of those things. But
Well, if it's
just
any
do it.
consolation, you are not the oldest person I know in VR chat.
No, it is no, I'm not. I've bumped
Yes.
into, like I told Lion, I've told and everything else. Like I bumped into a 73-year-old lady when the first time I ever went to a rave. She was on the floor, she was dancing, and the word got around. He's 73 years of age. How do you know? It's not because that you got to realize then when the first rave I've ever went, I got pulled into, didn't even know they existed. Didn't even know it existed. And you didn't have the bios and stuff like this. And the word got around because somebody asked her, wow, you're dancing really good and everything else. And she goes, yeah, not too bad for an old lady. And then, how it works. The question goes out the line. And it was just unreal that she was out on the floor just having a good time. And she was only doing it for her grandson. She tried on headgear at 73 years of age, just because she bought the headgear as a birthday or Christmas, but whatever the deal was, and wanted to try it out. That takes gall. That takes a lot of. It does take a lot, and you see it a lot. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's the power of like people discovering, oh shit, there's a space that I can just be me and do this stuff that I've always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like, God, I hope when I'm 73, I have the confidence and the physical capability of doing that. Like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I am totally on board.
It's cool that you see it. Don't matter, don't get me wrong, the age difference and stuff like this, where everybody complains about it from one extreme to the other, but they have as much as right as anybody else has. It's just, me and Lion talk about it all the time and stuff like that, and that's a complete different subject. But you get those people. It don't matter if they're people come up to you and ask, why are you in a furry outfit? Because I like foxes. Doesn't mean that I'm a full-blown furry. You get those and then they don't comprehend, they don't look at it, they can't see it because all they see is the skin. They don't look at the person that's behind it or why, or don't ask that reason. Why are you in a furry or not into this or into that and all that kind of stuff? And like you said, with creation, some of that stuff is not there yet. It's getting there, but not yet. And me and Lion are hoping. Me and Lion, we throw back ideas back and forth all the time, and we just can't wait. So, what's your question?
As another question for you, what were some of the earlier groups you take part in, and what were some of the first ones in VR chat, may I ask?
Yeah, so, oh, man. There were a bunch of groups early on that really inspired, like, kind of the group's, like, idea. There was just a lot of different social groups. It's hard to even name all of them. But in particular, if you go to air.mdl's old hub, like Memorial Hub, there's actually a bunch of, like, kind of statues there that show off a lot of the groups that were around very early on. Some of them I didn't know. Some of them I did know. And a lot of them were, again, just kind of groups of friends who wanted to have some kind of central identity or central, like, identifier to feel like that they're part of a group. And I think a lot of, God, I'm trying to think of some specific ones, but I'm, like, blanking hard right now. Rainbow Bears was one of them that I can think of specifically. I think it was Rainbow Bears, yeah. And like they all wore like different avatars that just had like rainbow like shaders on their avatar. It was something as simple as that, but that was basically like your guild brand, right? Your tabard, to speak in WoW parlance, right? That was really cool. Being able to see that, people, even with the very limited tools handed to them, they could build that kind of group identity. And there were some group events like that were going on. I mean, there were groups doing things like, again, like watching stuff or creating art. Like people would group up to create. I think there were some early drawing worlds, of course, like presentation room. People got really, really freaking good with the presentation room markers, like obscenely. And those people would go and group up to draw together. And then I mentioned DDVR, which was one of the earlier, if or not. It's always hard to like say earliest. Everyone wants to be first, you know. But they were very early as being an organized kind of club and group, playing music, playing sometimes even DJ'd music, which was a rarity then, and just having people hang out and party. So yeah, those
Wow.
are the ones I can think of.
I think I think DDVR is among the earliest. I remember hearing from I think I was talking with Paul Manton, and he said some lines of was Ghost Club
Mhm.
and DDVR at the same time, if I'm correct.
Yeah, yeah. Ghost Club. Well, Ghost Club was before it became kind of the the I almost want to call it like VRChat cryptid of VRChat clubs, right? Like,
Mm.
it's very you got to know how to get in, or at least that's kind of how it used to be. And it was before the queuing system. You basically had to know when to join and slam on join and pray to God you get in, essentially. So yeah, I think it was on very early on, but it was primarily in the Japanese community, which made it really difficult at that point to be able to join up, because after I don't know if this is true or not, but after kind of the explosion of VRChat in early 2018, I noticed that a lot of people, like Japanese friends that I'd met, the Japanese community kind of started to collapse into like closed instances, friends, friends plus, that kind of stuff. Um, and they did this to get away from publics, because it's very difficult as someone who doesn't speak English to operate in a space, or doesn't speak English well, operate in a space where it's just getting screamed at you from every direction and it's chaotic. And the Japanese community in VRChat tends to be a lot more chill, in most cases, not all cases, than the chaotic Westerners. Speaking as a chaotic Westerner, yeah, we're a little crazy sometimes. So Ghost Club kind of as far as I understand it, I might be getting some of this wrong. Early on, they were pretty hard to find if you weren't already part of that circle. Specifically, the first one I went to was also the first like big club event I ever went to in VRChat. So I kind of skipped the whole tier list because at the time Ghost Club was like the holy shit, I made it of getting into different venues. And I got in. It was Christmas morning, like I don't know, 2020 or something like that. A friend just told me, "Hey, you should check this out. It's a Japanese event." And I had been away because I was turning on some worlds for VCat, like they were doing a special Christmas Day thing. It was like, "Can you turn this on at 6 a.m. on Christmas morning?" Yeah, sure, fine. So I woke up on Christmas morning at 6 a.m. And not to open presents, but to run a Python script, and went to that afterwards. It was great.
Oh,
Yeah, it was really early on.
all right. So from being or joining VRChat as like a player and going through that time from going to club, experiencing worlds, making YouTube videos, what was it like once you finally got into the company and working for it, seeing things from the other side of the screen?
Yeah, so I've worked for a couple different companies of varying sizes. But I had not worked for anything that would be considered a startup before, right? But I did have a general idea of how they were run. I'd seen Silicon Valley, sure, or whatever, that kind of stuff. So I also had the hyper like exaggerated version of it. Um, Honestly, I came in and I was surprised how, despite how at that point everything was on fire, because it's January 2018. We've got 20,000 users online, and a month ago we had 1,000. Servers are exploding. Our system, our like main dev or server engineer person basically architected all that stuff, was rapidly working to make sure that we weren't either catching on fire, or that Jeff Bezos wasn't going to charge us $1 trillion overage on AWS or something. And despite that, things were pretty organized. For support stuff, I kind of got like free reign, right? All we had at the time when I came in was a Gmail inbox. That was it. Just literally open Gmail and start working through emails. And I was kind of given carte blanche to say, hey, like, go find a service if you want to. You can keep doing this if you can find a way that works. You can just let us know what you're like buying, and we'll get it signed up and it'll work. So it's very hacky and scrappy. And it was like that for a little bit. Eventually, once things calm down, we more organized certainly, and we're more organized over time. We still like to retain a lot of that hacky and scrappy spirit, especially when it comes to kind of the rapid iteration, the typical tech move fast, break shit kind of thing. You do have to have an element of that to succeed. But also with the added element of making sure that we're keeping the community in mind, like to an excessive sounds like there's too much, to a very, very, very high degree that like literally no other company I can think of does it. And that's present in every single conversation. And it was present back then too, right? Like, it can be, at the time, like it could be disruptive to like development processes, but also it informs you a lot. It's just a matter of getting words from people. Gathering feedback is hard. It was harder back then. It's easier now, but yeah.
Okay. Well, how is VR?
Question line.
Okay, shoot.
I go ask. Back in the time that I was there and everything else like this, coming into VR and everything else like this, the hours that you had to put in just to start to move up the ladder color wise, how'd you guys come up with that concept? That's what I was curious.
Oh, that's a great question. So initially there was no trust system, but we needed some way of basically determining, we had a large troll problem, I'm saying that as if it's past tense. We have a troll problem, just like the rest of the internet. And we needed a way to kind of establish a way to filter out certain avatar aspects because people were going absolutely wild, right? Like there's no protections. You can upload a shader and crash everybody or upload whatever. Like, again, these aren't solved problems even today, but it was 100 times worse back then. So we had to think of a way. How do we determine a level of basically investment in your account, right? Like, how do we know that you give a shit about your account? And the only real metric that we had at the time is like the actions you're taking in VRChat, right? So we decided to build a system that is still in some parts used today, but it's been slowly kind of like made more efficient and algorithms change, that kind of thing. That just gives you a trust level. At this point, I mean, I'm probably pretty confident in saying like most people don't care that much about it. It's partially by design. Like we hit it farther into the nameplate because people were being. There was some what's the prisoner experiment? You know what I'm talking about, right? That started popping out. The whole thing where if you define prisoners and you define guards, like the guard, even though they're just arbitrary people in a test, the guards started abusing the prisoners.
No, yeah,
God, I can't remember the name of it.
I know which one you're talking about now that you've described it, although I don't know the name myself.
Yeah,
I know we can either use that or
I just can't come.
Yeah, whatever that's called, and or Lord of the Flies, essentially. Like it was not a great it was not a great outcome. So we ended up kind of de-incentivizing people using that as a important measure point. I personally still want to keep de-incentivizing it to as much as we can. It's a fun little thing, but there's better ways for us to let you show off how dedicated or how experienced you are, right? Much better than just having like a social rank. But it does drive a bunch of different important systems like safety. So.
You mentioned earlier VRChat, and your goal is to work with the communities and try and do that as best you can. How is VRChat doing that? And may I ask?
Yeah. So we've got a fairly unique situation where a lot of our team is deeply invested in, I was going to say the product. That sounds very corporate, but I mean, in VRChat, right? Like they care about VRChat personally. And not everybody at the company does. Like some people, non-derogatory use of the word, are normies, right? They are normal, not degenerate people, to borrow your title. They exist in places other than the internet. And I'm very glad that they're here because they are a tempering spirit. And sometimes we have, like, oh, apologies for background noise if you're getting any.
It's all good.
The crazy ideas that we have, right? But we have people that are like, one of if you go to the Steam list for like most played time in VRChat, at least one of the people I think in the top 15 is a VRChat employee, maybe two. We have people that are very, very deeply invested, not just in spending time in VRChat, but also the different communities that they take part in. We have a large number of furries in the VRChat team, which I'm very glad for, because as the meme goes, furries run the internet. Yeah, we have a very diverse set of people that just happen to kind of cover a large swath of different communities. Not everybody, but a good portion. So that kind of works. That works decently well. So we have to kind of attenuate all that feedback that we receive through there, kind of receive through the Grapevine. In fact, we have a channel on our Slack called Grapevine where we post about things that we've heard, and kind of can use that as a listening tool. But then we also need to worry about the people that we don't talk to that often. There's language barriers, for example, with the Japanese community. We do have some people in the Japanese community, but again, they're only in a small slice of it. So we've been reaching out to different creators and working with lots of different people that create in different ways in VRChat, whether it's worlds or avatars, which are kind of the obvious first two, or different things like guides, tutorials, resources, shaders, tools, scripts, that kinds of stuff. And then, of course, also videos, streamers, that kinds of thing. And this is a in-progress thing. It's always going to be in progress, but we try and find a place to either on a personal level, with like one-on-one between, say, myself and someone I'm messaging, or in a larger kind of group setting, give people a chance to provide some feedback. What have you been worrying about? Like, what's been the cool thing that you saw lately? What's kind of the thing that's on your mind for regards to VRChat? And all of those things combined together give us a decent touch point. We also have a bunch of industry standard, typical practices like social listening tools and all that jazz. But those only work so well. They don't really work that well once you have a community that's this deeply ingrained into something like VRChat. You got to do the legwork. Like if you're not doing legwork, if you're not actually going out there and talking to people, you're going to miss out on a ton.
I can only imagine.
Question for him, Lines.
Oh, let's hold that real quick. I can only imagine how hard it is for you guys to keep up with communities. Being a person who tries to talk with everyone myself, I'm sure it's very difficult from your front.
Yeah, I only have so many neurons. I may be dressed like a robot, but my brain is very inefficient. And I blame COVID for making me stupider, probably. But it's probably just also me getting older and just becoming stupider naturally.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Thanks a lot.
Come on.
Thanks. I knew you were going somewhere. I forgot you didn't go that damn deep. Holy shit. My question for you is, since you...
Why don't you go fuck yourself?
Oh, God, that's kind of go.
I'm sorry, man.
I just got hit by... hit by a train, man. It's okay. I get sat on all the time, so it's no big deal. I should get used to this shit. Literally. Yeah. Smart ass. Yeah, I'm
I didn't
talking
say
to
anything
you.
yet. At least I'm not making a corn reference.
Yet is the problem we are talking about, young man.
What's wrong with porn?
You're gonna go there? You're gonna go there? Oh God, you had to go there too.
No, it's fine. We can leave it.
Okay, we'll talk about that off cam. Oh my God, help me. Since you are a VR player and everything else, like, what do you do in your spare time when you come into VR? What is the things that you enjoy? Okay.
So I'd say 3 general categories. The first of which is like music and club events. That kind of stuck with me after the first couple of times I experienced it. And when it really exploded on the scene and like people discovered, holy shit, it's really easy to host like a music event in VR and have people fully immersed and like have tons of people around that like the music that you can't find anywhere else. Certainly not in like, I don't know, if you live in small town BFE, whatever flyover state, like you're not going to have shit around you that you're into. It's all online. So now you've got a place where you can listen to your crazy, 212 BPM, 5/4, whatever genre you can think of. And there's a club there that has it. that's one thing. I go to those. I enjoy the music, make tons of friends, have a drink or two, chill out. Like despite the environment, it's very relaxing. And it's a great way to decompress. Of course, with any of these things, there's always ways for people to go off deep ends, just like in real life. So just got to make sure that you take care of yourself in those situations. But that being said, the communities I've found have been wildly supportive, very safe, kind of unexpectedly. I think from spending so much time on the internet, you expect the worst of people, but I have been surprised again and again. The second activity is world hopping. Like I like to adventure through worlds, see what people are working on, see like what's the cool new stuff that someone came up with today, and then decided that their brain needed to get out of the neurons and into Unity. And that's always really cool. I mean, sometimes it's full of just re-uploads, whatever. Someone bought something and they're trying to get their trust rank up. Or it's someone who had an idea they've been working on for 3 months, solo, completely silent, and they just upload it, right? Like an excellent example of something like that is Dr. Morrow's work on like organism and epilogue chapter 1 and 2. Like it's actually like I've talked to him once or twice. It's pretty hard to find him. He doesn't really, as far as I know, spend a huge amount of time in open VRChat, like where you can go and find him. But he has this ridiculous, like just expansive set of ideas and surreal kind of mindset when it comes to creation. And that's the only way you get to learn about him, through that art, essentially. So one of the groups that I hop around with, they're he would hate me if I called him a leader, so I'm not going to. The guy who runs it says that one of the rules of adventuring through worlds is that you need to figure out what the intent of the world is. Why did someone make this? It's just, it could be as simple as like I wanted to try it out, or is there a reason that they built their, childhood bedroom? Like, why did they want to put that there? So that's always really cool. Always, something fun and interesting. Occasionally you run into very rarely you run into stuff where you're just like, oh my God, how is this uploaded? Community Labs is surprisingly effective. Yeah. And then the third one is flying. I really like Sachan's flight system in VRChat. Sachan's flight system is the one that's used in Test Pilots, which is Sachan's world. There's a huge community of people that build worlds based off of that, right? So like F-14 carrier is one of my favorite ones. It's by Dwight Kaku and 7-Eleven. That one's great. I've always liked planes. It was what I was working on when I was a contractor for the Navy. I like military aviation a lot, and it's a lot of fun. And I like getting better at it. Like there's no point, there's no scores, there's no anything. Some people get very sweaty about it, basically, about getting really good at it. I don't give a shit about getting really good at it. But I kind of have naturally gotten better at flying over time. Not combat, I suck. I mostly just shoot down kids who call me names. But yeah.
Shoot down kids and call names.
What have been
They do. They call me a boomer. It's fucked up.
Yeah, I'm not even in that category, and I get it. Boy.
Oh.
I got another one for him. Everything else like this. I don't know. Have you ever been to? I've talked about it quite a bit. The world that was called the Vault. Have you ever been in it?
That Volt, V-O-L-T, or Vault, V-A-U-L-T?
O-L-T.
What?
Like the club?
Yeah, like the club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
that creator,
I know that world.
That creator was so far ahead of his time. It just blew my mind when I bumped into it. Now you go into it, you lag like you're dying in it because they've never updated it. It's sad.
Yeah, I actually know exactly who you're talking to, and that person is DigiTravX. They are a MMD artist. They make they've made a bunch of different models for different VTubers and different people over the years. They made like Mirai Akari. They made Project Melody's original model. a bunch of different ones, waifus. They also made, where is it? Hold on, I'm going to change avatar. They also made this avatar. So the person who made the Vault made what I call the business outfit, basically, the official whatever. I don't wear it so much anymore because I end up like flashbanging skirts like at cameras, and skirts are really annoying in VR chat. But yeah, I am familiar with Digi. I haven't talked to him in a bit, but he's always working on new projects. He's got a new one now. He's working on another, I think, a VTuber
Just wish
personality.
they'd go in and update the vault because I love hanging in there.
I will pass it on. I think actually he may have
Thank you.
passed on the files and the project to somebody else. So, oh man, that's a good question. Yeah, there were I have a lot of memories of that place as well. Like people will go upstairs, like you come down through the door or whatever, and then you go upstairs to the second area where the mirror is, like up on the second floor next to the elevator. People are always chilling out up there, just talking about whatever, mirror staring as usual.
Mhm.
But yeah, that is a good map, and it was ahead of its time, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially those hot tubs. Those are good
Quit
hot
staring
tubs.
at me. I didn't do it.
One day.
One day. It's usually all the time. What are you talking about? I'm always sticking my foot in my mouth.
Indeed. So
Oh, boy.
I wasn't gonna say anything, buddy.
Yeah, I did think you would.
No.
Sorry, folks.
No problem. So what are you happy that you now are working for the company that you once enjoyed when you first came in?
Yes, there's literally nothing else I want to do.
Hmm.
That's a very easy question. There are times where it's hard, sometimes where it's really, really hard. But most of the time, like all it takes is, I'll put this a different way. Like everyone gets tired after work, even if all they're doing is just sitting there and going to meetings or whatever. Like you get mentally exhausted. You can feel the friggin' folds like flattening out in your mind. And I get that too. Like, you get mentally exhausted. Or if you work a physical job, you get physically exhausted, whatever. You come home, you totally get it why someone would come home and like pop open a beer and watch, I don't know, The Simpsons for 4 hours straight every single day. It's like, yeah, okay, I understand. But coming into VR chat, like all I have to do is come in and talk with a couple friends and hop around a little bit. And most of that goes away. Like, because I realize that in my tiny way, I help build this thing. And in my tiny way, like it is this way because I have done things. There's not really anything like if I had every company in the world come to me with like a position that was ideally designed for me, there's like maybe 2 where I would seriously consider it. One of them is Valve. Maybe. I'll go work on Steam VR. That sounds sick. I don't know what the hell I would do for them. I'm a people person, damn it.
They're working on some wild stuff over there. Galaga and so on. Just even reading about that
Yeah,
stuff's
exactly.
nuts.
I got another question. So what you just said and stuff like this, when you pop into VR, how much do you get overwhelmed by people coming up to you?
So a lot less than you might think. In like public flight worlds, people will recognize me. They'll say hi, whatever. And that's kind of like the place where I have the most exposure in like public spaces. So if you go to like the F-14 carrier world at like, I don't know, 6 p.m. Pacific any given weekday, there's a solid like 50% chance I'll be in the most populated one. And people say hi. They're just like, oh, hey, Tupper, what's up? And they're respectful, whatever. Some people tend to chuck missiles at me with a higher proportion than other people that they could chuck missiles at. That's fine. I can shoot back sometimes, and sometimes it works. But yeah, it's less than you might think. There are situations like I think so I've gone on TVRS, Fia's show, a couple times. I've been there, and even though it's a lot of people coming up and saying hi and just like being very excited about meeting me, it's never quite overwhelming. It's almost there, but that's just like my lizard introvert brain that I have chased off, basically coming back. And it's always again recharged by the fact that like I'm just some weird dude with a weird job, but people are excited to see me. Why should I question that? Why should I question someone else's excitement? It's like, okay, you're excited to see me. I'm excited to see you. Hell yeah. It's yeah. There are cases where, if I don't know, if I hop to a random black cat, there's a solid chance that I will get overwhelmed by some edgy kid trying to be edgy. But I don't know. Even that I can kind of deal with. It's
The
an
only
armor you
reason I
build
asked
over time.
the only reason I asked that question because we had a person that we did a broadcast. It wasn't with them, and we went somewhere, and
Mhm.
that person was talking to Lion, and me being small as I am, and everything else like this, and I was standing right next to him, and he goes, "Where's the little guy at? I want to talk to." He was just overwhelmed, and everything else, and I stood there for 15, 20 minutes, and I was standing right next to him. He didn't see me, obviously, because I was small and the way the lighting was, and it was music playing and stuff like this, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden I go, "So how can I help you?" And the man literally freaked. Lion knows what I'm talking about. It was
Yeah.
just like, "Whoa, sorry, what did I do wrong? Did I say something?" You are small. My God, I owe it. I'm like, "Oh my God, I just got to stand back and let the guy go." Because, you don't want to stop him because he's all wound up and ready. I
Yeah.
thought maybe you had that kind of reaction when somebody
Every
fucking
once
pounces.
every once in a while, yeah, some people get really, really excited. But yeah, you see, you've had that experience too, and it's very rarely bad. It's just usually a little like people don't expect that. On I guess the receiver side, not at all. Like when you do a cool thing that other people think is cool, like you are doing, they're gonna get excited about it, right? And like again, it comes back to why should I shit on your parade, right? Like hell yeah, I'm glad you're excited for it. Um,
Yeah, you just go, it just overwhelms you, and you just go look at him going,
yeah, you
"Okay,
don't know what
just
to
don't
do.
step on me." Yeah,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
don't know how to react. You don't know
Yeah.
how to react to the person because they're so wound, and you're
Mhm.
looking at them, and then you look at I look at Lion, I go, "Lion, what video did he see that I was acting like a total ass? I'm just curious. Can you fill me in?" And it just one of those things, and I was just curious.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's cool to see that reaction from people.
Yeah. You made a thing and people love it.
Hmm. Well,
There you go.
I do have a question for you as well. What have been some things from the VRChat community that has surprised you?
Um,
Hmm.
Man, that's a really broad question. A lot of
Yes.
stuff. Like we regularly we will release a system like I don't know, contacts and receivers, avatars 3.0, remote strings, whatever, like whatever feature you want to point out. And people will use it as a first layer kind of intended feature. And then slowly people kind of start to poke holes at like how it behaves or takes advantage of like even just like basically race conditions or the ways that certain things execute or whatever, really technical crap.
Hmm.
And then they make something new out of that. I don't know about the most surprising one. I think this one's a little bit sad because we had to remove it for some other reasons, but we had a small period of time where you could put a station on your avatar, a chair, which you can still do, but you could sit in your own chair, which caused some really weird shit to happen. But if you manipulated it right and you kind of did the voodoo the right way, like you literally had to like slam colliders into colliders or something. I don't know how it worked exactly. I never got to try it. But you could do crazy things like avatar flight while you're like going sideways, or like you're Superman flying around. That was very surprising.
Hmm.
But uh, very rarely we have to go in and say, actually, we can't do this because it causes problems. That is one of those cases. Hopefully, we can bring back something soon that kind of brings back that particular, brand of magic. But that's one example I can think of. Um,
Hmm.
Also, when we released Udon, like I had a general idea of like what it would mean, and I would tell people, yeah, you're not going to recognize VRChat in a year. I was right, but I also didn't recognize VRChat a year later. Like
Oh,
people
really?
did crazy things with Udon. Yeah, absolutely. Especially once Udon Sharp, all of Merlin's hard work, going into Udon Sharp, building that out, really paid off in like droves as people were able to make more technical things. personally, I always wanted to go like code first instead of like nodes and stuff like that. Totally understand why we went nodes first, anyways. But once like programmers got a hold of like something that they were more familiar with, they just went nuts with it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was expecting like prop hunt, trouble in terrorist town, like Gmod game modes basically, and people remaking in VRChat, and they did do that.
Hmm.
But then they built flight simulators, and they built like full immersive like experiences in games. I mean, they did that before with SDK2 with triggers and actions, but it was so like archaic and difficult to understand and impossible to transfer knowledge that like you only had a couple people who were good enough to figure it out. But now it's like, okay, now if you learn how to program, which is a much more generic and wide-reaching skill, like now you can build all this kinds of stuff. Hopefully we can make nodes better someday. Right now it's very much a second-class citizen to Udon Sharp. But we'll see. I think that's probably the most surprising one.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask
Or
another.
line. God, I got
Hey,
I
you're
got
on.
another one coming out of my butt. I'm on a roll. We interviewed the gentleman that made Go Go Loco. What in the process did it take you guys to actually look at what he was looking at and trying to do?
Yeah. So that's Fernata. I love Fernata. Great person. They created some really interesting systems. In particular, like I think scaling was probably the one that you're thinking of. In particular, with like the way that they did avatar scaling. And we saw that a lot of people were using it, and that people wanted it. And we knew it would be a huge pain to integrate it natively, and we did it. We did put it in, and it took literally months to get that system like to the point where it is now. So thank you to everyone who worked on it on the team. You know who you are, but oh my god, that was painful. Fernanda kind of like led the way on like a bunch of different Go Go Loco systems, in particular like this one right here, where I don't have to like have my locomotion animations play when I move around because I'm in full body. I mean, there's a lot of things here that have kind of either naturally come into VRChat as features through Go Go Loco stuff, and there's also other things that we've kind of left as like, okay, the community does this better. It's pretty complicated for like a vanilla like VRChat user, or like a very baseline person. But if you get into it and you get into VRChat and you want to figure out how to like play animations or make it so it looks like you're sitting down when you don't have trackers, like you can mess with Go Go Loco and do some crazy stuff. So I talk to Fernanda pretty often. Not as much lately. They seem pretty busy, but great person, very creative. And the few times where I've had to like message them or message them very like cautiously and be like, Fernanda, we kind of have to break this thing. Like I had to do that with scaling, and I was like, we're gonna have native scaling, but it's gonna break Go Go Loco scaling. And he was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to support this anymore. Like that was his attitude. I was like, oh my God, I totally get that. And always wonderful to talk to. A very, very good sense of humor, like very much up my alley too. Very kind of like dry and like straightforward play on humor, and I don't know, that just vibes with me.
Okay. I have a bit of a question for you as well. I'm a COVID baby, so I haven't
Sure.
been around at the same time both of you have. But how has COVID changed how you interact with VRChat or even with your job? Hello, we're here to interrupt the most interesting thing being said in our current video to ask you a favor, which is, would you mind joining us at any of the socials we have, such as Discord? We're hanging out all the time playing video games, so you can catch us there very frequently. We have I run Twitter for us, which is LionTurtle21 on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. It'll always be Twitter. But either way, there's that. We also have a Patreon, which we actually have a whole other show for our Patreon members, which are Aliquum and the newest addition to the bunch, Future Oracle,
Niche and Forbidden Zero, good friends of ours.
Yeah, thank you very much, you guys, for joining. It means a whole lot that you're there,
Yes.
and hope to see you there as well. We have a whole other show. There are some free ones we have released as well for the audio for you to listen to and to see what it's like. It's like a whole other show as a thank you. With that said, please enjoy the rest of your podcast on YouTube.
Yeah. So there's two aspects to this, right? Job's the easy one. VRChat's always been remote. We've always been 100% remote. We have technically an address that I think is like a mailbox in San Francisco. And I think we have an office in some other country that we had to like rent out in order to follow their laws or something. It's literally a box with a table and a chair inside of it. That's it. So COVID didn't actually do all that much for us. We still worked. We were still here, which is good for us because all of a sudden we just saw like our MAU just like keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going as people realize they can't go outside. Which this is gonna sound like super like capitalistic, but like in business focus, but like in the midst of a giant pandemic that killed millions, number go up. And like, yeah, you play into that just like a lot of different companies did. We had a lot of cases where people would get sick and they were scared and things like that, but they could still use VRChat. So I remember a lot of times where people had their friends to turn to in VRChat to kind of work through that as well and have support. And I remember a lot of that in particular, but also just a lot of people keeping themselves safe by staying inside and using VRChat. So we had a unfortunate source, but a boost of players, and a lot of creativity came out of that time because some people just they couldn't go to work. There was no work to do. Work was either canceled or they couldn't go or they couldn't do remote. So we had people coming in and learning how to model, how to create worlds, avatars, how to program. So a lot of creators came out of that time where, a lot of people had solid 3 or 4 months of just like, there's nothing else to do. Might as well learn this. So yeah, obviously shitty happenstance. But from that perspective, there is a silver lining. A lot of those people are still around, still creating stuff. Some people once COVID, I was going to say once COVID went down, that's not true. Once everyone decided to think that COVID is gone, and everybody went back out and readapted their real lives. I'm just glad that there was a place that they could go so they wouldn't go insane sitting in their home and rewatching Parks and Rec for the 7th time.
Fair. Nope. I've noticed VRChat changed a whole lot, at least since I started during COVID. Like, I think it's early 2020. I came in, and from there, it just seemed like I came on just as like the ride just got crazy. At least from my perspective on things, anyway.
That's interesting to think that, like, I think your experience is totally valid because, like, putting myself into a spot where I joined VRChat in 2020, yeah, shit does get crazy past that point. But from, like, my perspective from 2017, shit got crazy in December, right?
Oh, yeah.
From someone who joined with, with the Knuckles craze, shit got really crazy during COVID, or maybe a little bit beforehand as, like, stuff goes up. It's cool. Like, we have these little ages of where we have big join kind of, like, hiccups, whatever you want to call them. That's not exactly how it works, but it's how I think about it. And then people have these eras of how they experience VRChat, and how they feel about VRChat and how they feel about the past and how things have changed very much depends on when you joined, right? Like, if you played VRChat like really early on, like pre-Steam, so like before February 2017, like, you've got a completely different picture from me. And I thought that the old hub, the one that was the castle with the barrels you could chuck super far and the little blocks and everything in the campfire, that was the base core experience of VRChat. That is what I remember. That's what I'm always trying to push back to. That really, like, sense of community where you join and you just happen to know people that are just happen to be in that instance. But if you joined when we had the VRChat home, like, now your experience is different. Your priorities have changed a little bit. It's like a hyper accelerated, like, growth chamber almost. Like, If you think of your VRChat persona as its own separate being, you literally have grown up in a different universe depending on what month of a year you've joined. So that's a really cool kind of like. I'm glad you actually pointed that out specifically because I hadn't quite put that together in my brain yet. But yeah.
Well, I only say that because at least when I came in, maybe VRChat seemed, at least from what I've experienced anyway, I know everyone probably has a very different view. But when I came on, maybe I just didn't experience as much. But I feel like as soon as they popped on, things just kind of went this way as people came on because of COVID. And I thought it was amazing. It kept me hooked since day one.
Yeah. No, I mean that was a unique time just because there was so much creative output going on, right? Like there was so many people just trying shit. That's when like clubs also really picked up, right? Like before, I mean there were plenty. There were like early events, Loner, Rizumu, DDVR, like there had been a couple more, and Ghost of course was still around. But that's around the time that people discovered, oh, all I need is like a deck or even a friggin' Spotify playlist. It doesn't matter. And you can throw a party. And in the time where everybody was awkwardly attempting to have a party via Zoom, you had a bunch of people and like anime girls and furries like just living it up inside of VRChat. So you got to experience probably one of the most unique real life plus VRChat combinations that will probably ever exist. Unless we have another pandemic. Please God, no.
Fair.
Or, or the water wars start, or something along those lines.
The water wars? I've never heard that term.
Yeah, Oh yeah, no, it's a general like I think it's a general like term for like, oh well, what happens when what if the Colorado River runs out, or that kind of stuff. Water becomes more scarce. Don't search that on YouTube. That's probably a really deep hole. That's like slight Venn diagram overlap with like flat earthers or whatever.
Okay.
Still fun to watch though.
I have another unique question because I would like to know.
Sure.
What's the total number of players in VRChat? Because I only see the Steam numbers. I'm kind of curious as a person.
Okay, so the monthly active users I can't tell you. Like the number of the users that log in a month and we consider active, that one I can't share. But I can share with you right now. At this very moment, there are 83,544 users online.
Wow.
And that's pretty typical for around this time. So the Steam numbers that you see are just Steam users. But at this point, like Steam is only about half-ish. It depends on the day of the week, what time of the year, that kind of thing. Quest users tend to hop on more during the summer because, as we all know, Quest users tend to be on the younger side and tend to have school to go to. So during summer, we see an interesting boost from that. Oh, excuse me. But on this past weekend, we broke 100K on Friday, and then on Saturday we broke 105K. So that is a pretty significantly sized small city, kind of worth of people that are in VRChat.
I can tell you why. I can tell you why it went that high. The temperature was so fucking outrageously hot.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to go outside.
It's bad.
That's the reason why they jumped.
I moved north because I like the cold, and now it's too damn hot here, so now I gotta keep going.
I know the feeling, and I'm in the central northern panhandle and going, what the hell's this goddamn 100-degree weather bullshit?
I know.
I came up here to get out of the goddamn heat. And it just falls with you. You're going, shit.
That's probably a decent explanation. That's black flag weather across a pretty big swath of the U.S. and the whole world, actually. I know Europe's getting absolutely battered. And when I went to Japan recently, first time being to Japan, I loved it, but don't go during the summer, because if you're familiar with the Southeast, specifically of the United States, so like Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, that kind of stuff, I grew up around that area. I moved because the humidity and the heat are the worst parts of it. It felt just like home as far as weather goes, and that was rough, especially when it's in a place walking is like one of your main modes of transportation. And the trains. Oh man, those trains were sick. Yeah.
Oh.
That's decent explanation. I think that's probably a good factor.
So, what have been some of your favorite memories from VRChat, either working for or playing?
Oh man. Favorite is tough. There's a lot of memories. They're kind of, hold on. I've got there's a lot of neurons fighting right now.
Sorry to
I'll
put
just
you in the
start naming
spot.
them off. No,
Yeah, it's
it's a
like,
good.
well, he's having the same issue you have when you say the brain cells are fighting for fucking to get back in.
Yeah,
Mine's just looking
exactly.
for it. Yeah.
I think one of the ones that I remember really early on was at a, God, what was it called? It wasn't a club. It was just kind of a club-looking environment. And this was back when we had web panels, and the way that you played videos was by literally like browsing to YouTube and pulling up a video. Pub starts with a P. But there was just like a room where we did that, and someone put on like a 4-hour mix of like house music or whatever. And like that was the first night where me and my friends just like sat in there, and people joined, some people left over time, but we just hung out in there. We had some drinks, chilled out. It was very much like a house party.
Mm.
And that was like one of the first like times that I had that experience there. And I was hanging out and drinking with like friends that lived in the US. There were some people that were from like Korea, from Japan. There was someone from the UK, like all across the world, and probably the world's most like diverse bar at that given point. And that was Club Proximity. There we go. I knew it would show up. That map might still be up. It was made by Cubed, I think, Cubed Paradox. So that one I remember specifically. For one, I don't remember which night, but some night it was just like, oh wow, you can do this here. That's sick. There's also a particular instance where I was hanging out with some friends in the Great Pug, and we were going up the stairs to the second floor. So you go up the first and you get up to the landing on the second floor, and there was some troll, some dickhead that was harassing one of my friends who happened to be trans, and we were calling them she because that's what she wants. So they turn around and, oh, I spoiled the final line of it already. But they ask, why are you calling why are you calling them she? And I turn around and I just said, because that's what she wants to be called. And the guy didn't really have a response. He just kind of cut off and was like, oh, and went back down the stairs. Which was like a good memory for a lot of different reasons, right? Like that's a whole like recognizing identity like moment for me. I kind of like got why that's important for people. It's a disarming a troll kind of thing. Like a lot of people that are trolling are just kind of like looking for attention or engagement in some way. And if you know, there's ways to shut that down, and then they just turn into a normal person. And also just hanging out with friends and having a good time. Like we didn't skip a beat, and we just kind of kept going. It didn't bother any of us. So that is a core memory, as it were. There's a lot of other ones. I have a lot of very good memories of hanging out with the shelter crew. So Two Tones venue. Been friends with them for a long time. That community is ridiculously loving and caring, and like, sure, it's a music venue and they play cool music and bring on all kinds of cool artists, but really the community there is ridiculous. There was one particular instance where some dude, his desk shattered in the middle of like an event. I don't remember why. I don't even think he was like, yeah, I don't think they were like slammed on it or broke or whatever. It just kind of fell apart, just too much shit on it. And in the middle of DJing, I think, or in the middle of running the show, Two Tone sets up like a PayPal wallet for him, and then posts the link and at everyone and says, "Hey, this guy's desk just broke. Let's get him a new one." And 4 minutes later, there was like $400 in the account.
Oh wow!
So he got like a really sick desk, and it was like, "Holy shit! Turn off the PayPal." But it was that was a good moment. Like it's just a bunch of people coming together to like have a decent sized community where everybody knows everybody, and if anyone comes in new, like they get supported, and if they're good people, they'll stick around and that kind of thing. That the reason why that's important is because that happens everywhere. Like that's not just shelter. That's just the one I saw, right?
Hmm.
That kind of thing happens all over the place. Whether it's in small little communities or friend groups, you could even call them in just like groups of 4 or 5, up to huge ones with thousands of people in them, or tens of thousands in the case of like Trans Academy. That level of support exists everywhere, and it wouldn't exist without VRChat. So it's always good to like it's always good to see that, I guess, in action in front of you. So that's another really good memory.
Okay. How many
2
more?
questions for him, Line.
Ooh.
I got 2. Okay.
Ooh.
Since you were talking, yeah, I got 2. Oh yeah, most of the time I never mass past 1. I know. Old age is a bitch. When you said you world hop and stuff like this, what world
Yeah.
sticks out in your mind the most that you always want to venture back?
Oh man. It's Organism and Epilogue, for sure. Like there was a moment, I think it was in Epilogue Chapter 2, where there is like a snowy beach, and you can look out across the beach, and there's this factory/church looking thing. And I don't know what it was, but like I'm a big fan of kind of bleak architecture, right? Like my favorite manga is a manga called Blame, and it is a masterclass. Like the guy is a terrible character artist, but at least to start. But the person who is the author, Tsutomu Nihei, there we go, is excellent drawing like architecture, giant mega structures kind of shit. And I don't know what it was, but like the bleakness of that against like a ridiculously cold looking night sky on like a snowy, desolate beach of what looked like military surplus trailers, I was like, holy shit. Like everything connected all at once, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it was just basically an art piece. Like it didn't do anything. It wasn't moving. It didn't have an interaction or whatever, but just like Moro built that to elicit something out of people, and it elicited the fuck out of something out of me at that point. So that was the one that I went back to several times just to go to like that particular spot. Think that's the main one. There's a bunch of stuff that I go back to, and I have a playlist that I have like saved to go back and check on them. But that's the one that jumps out immediately.
Okay, my other question is, how often do the people in VR chat, your group, not the group that you hang with, but the people you work with, all get on VR chat at the same time?
Fairly often. So we have team meetings, which are a couple times a month, and those are whole team meetings. We come and hang out in VR chat, but we also have a bespoke kind of like bot camera system we built that ties into like Google Meet or Slack or whatever, so people who can't hop in for whatever reason can watch through there, and they can send chat through. And we spend time there, just kind of going over company stuff. Here's some updates. Here's some things like that. People talk about what they've been working on. But then also we have these, forget exactly what they're called, but basically they're world explorations, world tours. That's what they are. And the reason we have that is because of the aforementioned and much loved kind of normies of that work at VRChat. They got important shit to do in their normal lives. They don't have time to go and explore and find cool stuff. So what we do instead is each week a team member puts together kind of a playlist and a intent of what they're trying to do with this tour, and we bring those people along and show it off. And this has been really cool, especially for some of our like more leadership hires that have come from big companies like Meta and from Twitch and from stuff like that. Because they kind of get it, right? Like I've been able to talk with them for hours on end and explain why this is all important, and they believe me. Like they get it. They know that I'm the expert here in that conversation. But when we bring them, say, to like, we brought them to Sanctum, which is a club event, and Sanctum was wonderful and like threw basically a little miniature demo party basically, and several people came in, and were just like, oh, I totally get this now. And it was really important for them to like kind of understand that. In particular, there's one of one of our team members, she's a big fan of like music festivals and stuff like that. She came on Quest initially, but was having some problems. Sanctum is Quest compatible, but there's some bug or whatever going on. She couldn't hear the music or see the visuals. So I said, just go hop on desktop, go get on your Windows laptop and come in here. This is not a person who curses very often. Very nice, very kind person, doesn't really like curse out loud. She came through the doors and they opened up and it was like visuals blasting everywhere. And I heard her say, like through my earmuffs, holy shit. Like to no one in particular. Her microphone was just on. And I was like, oh, okay. Now she gets it, right? It's when we do stuff like that, we're really seeking moments like that to make sure people kind of understand the possibilities in the space. And also to tell history. One of the first world tours we did was a kind of a climb through historic worlds, like the original coffee cafe. Gaia Night was also another one we went to because thankfully it was Quest compatible. And kind of illustrating why that's important in various ways, from a culture significance point of view, to community, to like where we were at that time in VRChat. But yeah, we hang out quite a lot. A lot of meetings also happen in VRChat. We have a VRChat group that we use. We use our own systems for like, making sure the instances are secure and people can join it. Yeah, not all the time. I mean, sometimes it's just easier to hop on, Google Meet or Slack or whatever.
Okay.
There was something you mentioned that I kind of am curious about myself is when you
Sure.
explain VRChat or the concept of VRChat to people who've never been in here, is it an easy sell? Because sometimes when people ask me about what I do, I feel like the
Yeah.
dude frazzled hair, map lines everywhere.
Yeah. Who is Pepe Sylvia? There we go. Yeah, it depends, right? Whenever you talk to an audience about a complex subject like that, you have to establish a baseline. So first you have to ask, like, hey, do you know what an online community is? Like, do you know about like the internet beyond just like this is where you go to order groceries and get Uber or whatever. And then it helps a lot if you can also establish some context of like, if they're an older individual, then it's gonna be like, okay, did you post on old message boards? Did you play Second Life? Did you play MMOs? That kind of stuff. If they're younger, admittedly, they probably already know VRChat, but they also like, you can use Fortnite as an easy bouncing point. But from there, you can describe it as kind of a place where it's a virtual space. You are in sync with other people. You can talk to them directly and see them moving. You can see them moving their hands, or if they have trackers on, you can see their feet, whatever. And then they can wear basically any avatar that they want. Like they can create their own appearance. And to a lot of people, that's like, okay, you can change hair color, you can change your clothes, and then you have to be like, no. Anything. You can be a walking, talking fox, whether you're 6 feet tall or 6 inches tall. And you could be a giant robot. You could be a normal sized robot. You could be an anime girl. You could be an anime boy. You could be just a lot of different brands of anime. Actually, is usually what it is, as we all know, or furry. Yeah, and then you can also go basically anywhere. You could go to something that is a representation of real life, like a photo scan of something. So that's also usually a really easy way of like slowly opening the box of possibilities. It's like, imagine you not having to go to a place to be immersed in it. Someone took a photo scan of the Sistine Chapel, so you can go there, and it's a pretty dang good representation. But what if someone made their own Sistine Chapel? And then what if someone made it cyberpunk? And then what if someone put a DJ deck at the front and a bunch of like speakers in the back? And then what if someone put a jet airfield out on the side where you can take off and fly around in it? Like, you can kind of build off of, what they already know. And that I found that to be the most successful. If it's an elevator pitch, that is the hard one. Doing VRChat in 30 seconds is, yeah. If we were doing the whole like, typical startup sales pitch kind of thing, that would probably take a good bit of work to try and explain.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask another question, kind of on those same lines. I'm more from my own
Sure.
curiosity. Is it an easy sell to like like the average Joe versus also is an easy sell to like a company if you're to like try and get them involved or something? Do they get it? Who gets it better?
Yeah. I'd say that like companies are pretty quick to pick up. Like the entire concept of metaverse, you just kind of say that and you've already encapsulated a lot of what they probably think. And depending on what their read is on kind of the current space, you could say like it's metaverse, but actually pulled off. Like it's the closest thing that there is to, oh, you saw Ready Player One? Yeah, it's actually that. It's the thing that was there before Ready Player One came out as a movie. Um, and that usually explains it. For the average Joe, that's harder. Like I'm imagining like, I don't know, my electrician or plumber, right? And that's the I've had like a contractor come in a couple of times that works on stuff, that kind of things, and he's genuinely interested. He sees all the like fucking lighthouses and shit. It's like, what are you doing in here? And he's like curious, and I've explained to him, I work on VR chat, and he was like, I think I've heard about that. What is it? And explained it as basically, I mean, what I just said, right? I spent like about a minute or two figuring out his baseline, where he kind of knew to operate from, and explaining up from that. And he was pretty receptive. Even telling him, it's like, yeah, it kind of is all the best and the worst of the internet, but in a synchronous immersive space. And he seemed to like that, because I mean, everyone knows that there's pure dichotomy in literally anything humans make. There's always the best and the worst of anything. So that worked decently well. So I think it's possible. It does take a bit of personal care and like explanation to people individually. I think it would be really hard if you had like to make a commercial about VR chat, for example. Like imagine we got a Super Bowl spot. Like what the hell do we put in there, right? How do you explain VR chat in a 30-second spot? Yeah. I wouldn't know how to do that. That's why we hired marketing people.
Fair point. Now,
Yeah.
I kind of also want to ask a bit of a tough question, or I guess
Okay.
a touchy one. I'm for again curiosity's sake. How has
Sure.
EAC changed VR chat during COVID and that whole decision? Was it for the better
Yeah.
or not?
So I am biased,
Mm.
and the spoiler here is that it absolutely was for the better. So I'm a person who likes modding games, right? Like I don't play World of Warcraft with the unmodded UI. I don't like it. The reason why I don't play Final Fantasy 14, among other reasons, is that you can't mod the UI, and the base UI is garbage. I change all the settings on all of my operating systems. I've run every single desktop like manager or window manager I can find for my play around Linux computer over there. Like I very much like modifying things to my own liking. The problem is that all of those things, for the most part, only affect me. So the things that were like, if I change my UI or if I do other things, like I'm either, or like modding Minecraft, for example, either you consent to everything there and everybody has it. Stop that. Or, oh, now you're completely wrangled off in my space. Hold on, I'm going to power that off and back on. Or it's something that you are only running locally, right? So VRChat pre-EAC was kind of a Wild West. When you could modify VRChat and kind of do whatever you want, that meant that you could run scripts locally and take actions via the network on other people and on worlds that people potentially didn't consent to or might complicate things. Or when Udon came out, you could just like arbitrarily execute Udon code, that kind of stuff. Or sorry, not execute Udon code. You could arbitrarily call functions. I got to be technically correct there. And there was a lot of good things, like EMM in particular was really cool for allowing people like really open access to different like avatars and things like that. The like infinite favorites or whatever. And to their credit, when we contacted them and said, hey, like we're charging for this thing and you offering infinite favorites is kind of like, this isn't good. We can't work with this. And they actually put in a check that made it so you had to have VRC Plus to have access to the infinite favorites. So credit to them. But in the long run, like there were so many so many people that came to harm or like had problems because of these different modifications, right?
Mm.
Not just technical ones, like people getting viruses on their machine, or I remember one particular case where like someone updated their auto-updating mod because they were drunk and angry one night, and it just dumped a bunch of undeletable files on your desktop.
Oh.
Like, that could be so much worse, dude. That could have been 10 million times worse. Like, but they didn't, because either they didn't know how, or, which probably would happen, or whatever, right? But the possibility is there, and people started assuming, oh, well, everybody does it, so it must be fine. So that, among other reasons, those are kind of the biggest ones. I know a lot of people like to cite like, oh, it was investors or whatever. Investors don't give a shit. They did not care. Not a word ever came from anybody at that kind of level to say, hey, let's put EAC in. So I'm going to dismiss that one entirely. It was almost entirely a decision of like, hey, we need to take control of like the VRChat, like actual client side application. We need to be confident in what's running there, and we need to learn what's coming from these so that we can adapt it and build it into the base application. Because this is like pure user feedback. It is the purest form. People want this so bad that they're making it. So yeah, it was tough. It was communicated terribly, and if you want to blame anyone for that, you can blame me. Sure, that's fine. But it ultimately was for the so much better. Like EAC isn't perfect. You can still figure out ways to bypass it or run your own, modified client, whatever. That's fine. That's always going to be the case. I've told people a bunch of times the only way to like perfectly secure VRChat against that kind of stuff is to become a Google Stadia exclusive, but Stadia is dead. So I don't know, GeForce Now, I guess. We'll become a GeForce Now exclusive. No one's going to like that. But yeah, the end result is a lot of very good things. It was painful in between. We got a lot of cool features out of it from stuff that we saw mods like doing, and it was like, let's make our version of this. This is good. And contacted people who relied on mods for accessibility, for example, like the hard of hearing and deaf community, and worked with them to figure out what was important for them and what would work. That's where Chatbox came from, working closely with Helping Hands specifically. Their feedback played in a huge amount for that. IK 2.0 basically came from the IK tweaks mod. Like, that entire idea was like, oh, our IK sucks. But sorry, tangent to a tangent. The reason why our IK sucked so much is because we were using it, but no one was really complaining about our IK. And this made me realize, like, afterwards, after EAC, when we started getting hit by a deluge of feedback, the reason we weren't getting feedback is because when people would have problems, they would just get a mod to fix it. So we would stop getting feedback. So now we don't know that it's a problem. So it's kind of a defeating little, feedback loop. It's a self-deleting feedback kind of thing. So while the in-between was certainly painful, like I remember that August very, very specifically, we ended up in a better space because of it, right? And now everybody can access it. You don't have to run arbitrary code from God knows who on your computer. So yeah, ran that. We put EAC in. Everybody was not happy about it. Understandable. Had a bunch of cool things and had them taken away from you. Totally get it. If WoW got rid of UI mods, I would stop playing WoW. Like, yeah, I get it. But our frame rate went up by 15% in one day. Toxicity dropped by a pretty marked amount in the following weeks. It turns out that a lot of the people, to explain the first one, it turns out a lot of the mods that were made badly, and were destroying performance on a lot of computers. So like our FPS shot up like a solid 15-20% in one move. And also the people who were so mad about mods to the point that they were like, fine, I'll just leave, also tended to be quite toxic. Now, not saying that if you use mods you were toxic, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there's some kind of correlation there, right? And that one was unexpected. That one I had no idea would happen, but did happen. And then, of course, we implemented a lot of the features that we were planning on doing anyways. We developed a lot of those features during our summer jam, which was I think we did, I forget which year. Was it 22 that we did that? 21? I forget. But that happened on July 26th, I think. But like at the beginning of July is our jam week when we kind of, just find something cool to work on and work on it. Everybody decided to work on this list of things that we had just kind of farmed up and like said, hey, these are a bunch of cool ideas. Let's put it into our feedback. So we basically already had a ton of these features basically ready to go that people would hack together in about a week or so, which isn't normal operations and isn't normally how you do things. When we implemented all those things, our UI was a friggin' mess. It was absolutely awful, but people loved it. Personal mirror and like a bunch the IK kind of like additions we made, chat box, all those different things came out of that. A bunch of other things as well. Horizon Adjust. Horizon Adjust is quite heavily used even today by people who choose not to or cannot stand up or sit up. Yeah. So yeah, long answer. But I'm sure it's like a question a lot of people will be curious about. But hell yeah, it's better. Didn't do some things quite right. That's okay. The end result is a much better VR chat than it was before.
I very much agree. It's nice hopping in Publix without having my computer learn what 2 frames are.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I could bring you to some instances that will destroy even the monster machine I have here. Like, but I hear you. There's a lot of stuff that got improved as a result of that.
Well, I apologize for having that one tough question, but I'm going to lead it into another, Morris, because I had some
Okay.
conversation with people, and I kind of want to know as well. What is this Tupper
Sure.
toast thing, and what do you think about it?
Sorry. Someone with a coffee can attached to their muffler just drove by.
Oh.
Yeah. Very, very. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So.
Damn, he got second gear.
Yeah. Yeah. In his mom's Subaru, I'm sure. But like, I think this initially came from so I'm gonna clarify. You said Tupper toes, not toast, because I did hear toast.
Sorry, my bad.
But no, it's okay. I
Toast.
was like, damn, I got toast. Do you smell toast? You need to go to the hospital. But it initially came from a night at Loner. Loner's a club event that's run by Veletix and at the time Zeal, and someone had a stupid idea, as you typically do at those types of venues and when you've had that amount of drink, essentially. And someone took a picture of just like my feet. And at the time, my avatar didn't wear shoes because I hate shoes in real life. And I guess I just didn't put shoes in my avatar. And I was like walking around like a club with like a nasty bathroom in the back, like just bare feet in there. And they thought it was funny. They took a picture of it and they went on like Redbubble or whatever and slapped it onto a shirt. And I think Veletix at the time didn't have full body. And he was like, I want to fund full body for myself by selling this shirt. Put the shirt up, linked it in their Discord. 10 minutes later, had the $300 to buy all the trackers. And now I have a stupid shirt with a picture of my toes on it, as does a bunch of people all around. And that in combination with, so there was that event. There was also a video that I did after we changed up our IK system, showing people how to properly calibrate using the new calibration system. And in part of that, I'm recording myself in real life, and I move the camera down to show where my feet are. And of course, I hate shoes, so I'm not wearing shoes with trackers on. If you're wearing shoes with your trackers, you're a maniac. I'm sorry. But like, I had my feet there, and at the time, one of my jokes with one of my friends that does not like feet at all was she would just scream no feet anytime the subject came up. I blurted out and I put like giant red and yellow flashing text on the screen, no feet, right?
Yep.
So somehow those two things kind of merged together into just this thing. Like someone made a group semi-recently that has a picture from that video, like the one where it's just like my feet where I'm standing on like some carpet. And then Iron Biscuit, bless her soul, when we were at a shelter event in New York City, we were outside of one of the events, and she said, take off your shoe. And I was like, why? What? She just commanded me, take off your shoe. I was like, oh my God, okay, fine. I took off my shoe and she's like, take off your sock. I was like, fine. So I had my foot there, which I had, my girlfriend had painted with, you know, the blue I have here. They were very nicely done up, and she took a picture, Iron did, and I didn't hear about it again for about a year when I realized that, or she told me that she had sent it to like 5 different people, and I was like, oh, cool, thanks, Iron. So that's spread out to God knows where. So I don't know. There's nothing special about my feet or feet in particular. Actually, that's not true. My right foot has been stung by a stingray, so I guess that's a little bit
Oh.
special. Yeah,
That-
that fucking hurt.
I bet it did hurt.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Oh,
during an
shit.
eclipse.
Oh, that even adds more to the fucking situation.
Yeah, I know.
Was it a red moon or a blue moon?
No, this was a solar eclipse.
Oh,
So a red
shit.
moon.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, this
Ouch.
was what was that? 2018. We were at a beach like on the coast of South Carolina. And we, you know, as you do, you go to the beach, go around the water. But I used to live on the beach, but then I stopped and I went back and I forgot about like the vital rule of like, especially in murky water on the East Coast, you got to shuffle. You don't step, you shuffle. But you scare away the poor little, you know, rays that are all over the place. And I'm an idiot and I stepped down on one. It stabbed me right in my foot. Felt like apparently it feels like a gunshot wound. So now I know how that feels. Hooray. And crawl up onto the beach, fall down. My sister comes over. It's like, what's wrong? It's like, I don't know. I think a stingray got me. Can you call the EMTs? And she's like, yeah. And they roll up in a 4-wheeler on the, like about 10 minutes later, while like the total eclipse is passing by. And they were like, you're fine. Like, I'm sure it hurts, but if you want to stay here for like a minute, we're not going to complain. I was like, yeah, sure. So I'm sitting there like half woozy from pain, and they're just like, man, I sure am glad I'm here instead of dragging someone out like of a meth house or something like that. I was like, yeah, glad I could help. So, yeah, fun times. That is the only reason my foot's special.
Hmm. Ooh, another
I
question.
got a question for him.
Shoot.
Or do you want to go
no.
first?
I know you go first.
Yeah. We hear a lot of rumors and stuff like this in VR. It's
Okay.
one of, you know, and everything else like this. But the biggest one that I keep hearing, me and Ryan talk about it left and right, is the age verification situation. How are they going to, knowing that we don't know, and people, everybody, I've had people when I told them, yeah, I'm talking to you, and are you going to ask them this and ask them that? And I go, you got to watch your P's and Q's. But
Right.
the biggest one that everybody goes, what are they going to do with this age verification situation? And I go,
Yeah.
okay, I could ask for our viewers and stuff like this and people, because it's always a conversation, no matter where you walk into VR, it's
Yeah.
everybody complains and everything else like this. And I go, well, they're working on it, but I don't know what it is. And they go, well, can you find out since they and everything? And it's a sore subject, no matter which way you play in it. I know that for a fact. How they're going about working on something in that situation.
Yeah, so like we haven't released much detail on it, mostly because it's still in development, right? There's of course like the technical implementation, but that's not that hard, honestly. Like it's mostly kind of wiring up UX and UI and like a process to being able to talk to the provider that we're working with. And that the provider, which we haven't named yet, is like they do this. This is their business. They're really good at it. They're like one of the best out there, at least the one that we're likely to pick. Very privacy centric. Like they're great. But as far as how the mechanics will work, like that's still where a lot of the work like lies and what we're trying to figure out. It's a good question though, because I think when you say age verification, like that means like 3 different things to people, right? Like on one hand, you have like the bars in VRChat, like Midnight Bar. Sorry, that might not be the right name. I think it is Midnight Bar, right? The one that's like Valhalla.
I think so.
But I think so.
I think it's a midnight bar.
Oh, excuse me. Midnight Bar, yeah. There's people, if you go to a group public of that, people will actually age check at the door. And while that's like, they'll literally just ask you, it's like, what year were you born and how old are you? With the general idea that like you get voice information from that so you can hear someone and hear if they sound they're of age, but that's not reliable. So then you ask them what year they're born and how old they are, and you can do some quick math to see if they messed up. So I get the idea. That's still nerve-wracking to me. Like, you shouldn't. It's like the first thing you learn about the internet, right? It's like, don't tell people about how old you are and stuff like that. But so that's one thing that we want to solve, and that's one way that we could potentially go, right? Is provide a mechanic for people to do that, but officially. But that doesn't really solve the second problem, which is what a lot of people are also thinking of, which is like, how do I know that, like, in a random instance, that it isn't filled with like kids I shouldn't be talking about adult stuff around? I don't mean like porn or whatever. I mean, it's just like, you don't want to sit around and like talk randomly with your friends about like personal stuff or whatever that could involve, sexual things or violent things or traumatic things or whatever, which is normal conversation for an adult. And then have like a kid run up and ask you, it's like, what does that mean? It's like, oh, holy shit. So that doesn't solve that problem, right? It kind of does, but doesn't really. And then the third class of solution that people are probably thinking of is like, well, they're just going to age verify everybody, and if you aren't allowed to be in, then they're going to block people. I don't know which way it's going to go. Like, designing the actual thing isn't like my purview or like my job. And we got people that are much better at it to do that kind of thing. But what that does tell me is that we've got like several problem spaces to kind of work out, and we can solve some of them. Some of them are more expensive or harder to do than other ones, and that's a big factor too. Like, age verification is not free. It is something that costs money to do. So you can't just hand it out. Or can you, right? Like, that's also another question. And also, it's a whole nother level of friction, right? Like, imagine you have to go through age verification, even use VRChat. Okay, that's like solid. Like, even as an adult, if I had used VRChat for the first time and I had that prompt when I log in, it was like, oh, never mind, I uninstall. So I don't know is the answer. And hopefully those like demonstrations of like the problems in this problem space shows that like that's why I don't know. Because there's not just a simple solution there. We could cause irrevocable damage to VRChat if we do it the wrong way. But yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Indeed. What are some things down the pipeline users can look forward to coming out of VRChat, and future updates or things that are being looked to be released soon?
Sure. So I think probably the most transformative one that's going to come out, hopefully soon, fingers crossed, but I can't do it. Here, there you go. Fingers crossed is persistence. And persistence is just a way for, at least, I think the first version is just called player data, or I call it player data, where it's very simple. Each player carries within them a space for a world to store data into it, and into that player, and it's saved for that world. So like the VRChat home could save data in here, and when I come back, that data can be recalled. Much like Udon, like that's going to be wildly transformative, right? Like there's shit you can't do today that you will be able to do the day that comes out. There are worlds that do this in hacky ways right now, like Terrors of Nowhere. Terrors to no, it's TON. Terrors of Nowhere. Like Project Eincrad. Idle Home, all of those have different systems for you to be able to save your progress, because they're things or games or whatever that take hours upon hours. But why would you do that now? Now you just have a save that just automatically updates, and then when you leave and you come back, it just reloads your data. That opens up a ton. Like, you can make an MMO with that. You could make a role-playing game. You could make a version of The Devouring where you don't have to complete it all in one sitting for 6 hours straight. Yeah, that's probably the most exciting thing. I hope that comes very soon. It turns out that just saving some simple little data to a player is a lot more complicated than you might think, especially when we have some ideas for how it would kind of grow past there, like our ideas for past that initial version. Let's see, what else do we have? In this open beta that I'm in right now, we have the new input system, so fingers act a little bit differently, and but most importantly on PC VR, like you can arbitrarily input data into the Steam VR skeletal system. So like you have like haptic gloves that can pick up on finger bends, as long as the software supports it, it works.
Wow.
You can have hand tracking on PC now, like with a Quest through virtual desktop. Like you can just put down your controllers and move your hands around, and you get hand tracking. It's really sick. Also in that update is VRC constraints, which is a replacement for Unity constraints, which suck and are bad. Ours do not suck and they are great. My IK, however, right now is being very sucky, so apologies for that again. Those are kind of the big ones I can think of right now. The constraints and the input stuff are like next update. So it's might even be out by the time you put this video up. And the persistence, I don't know. We'll see. That might be sooner than you think. Who knows?
Okay. And I also like to ask about the creator economy. What can people look forward to, how that's going to develop?
Actually, so we've done some recent announcements, at least to the testers, the people that are currently in the program, of things that we're working on. I don't know if we published that openly, so I don't want to talk about it, but there is some
Fair
cool
enough.
stuff coming. A lot of the feedback that we've been getting has been really, really useful from creators. We've been working super closely with a lot of creators. People that are smaller creators that aren't making that much, and like the people that are more successful in the creator economy, we've been talking to them too. Everybody, we want to hear from everyone. And we've gotten some great stuff from there, and we've been iterating on it. So that's hopefully soon. I think some of that is entering like closed beta testing kind of status at this point.
Okay. So, final two questions we'll ask you before we wrap up.
Sure.
Where did your name Tupper come from?
It is my last name.
Oh, that's interesting.
Easy. Yeah. I've just
Then next that one down like fucking butter on a fucking toast.
yeah. No, it's so my family's always been like military related or whatever. Like I was a kid moving around, that kind of thing. So at some point, one of the places that I moved was a more military leaning town, and the kids just kind of adopted the habit of it was near an army base, so very army thing of just calling people by their last name. I think that's specifically an army thing. I don't know, but yeah, it just kind of stuck. And like my other two names, while I appreciate them for what my parents the reasons my parents gave them to me, they are a lot less remarkable than Tupper. So if I tell people, hey, my name's Tupper, like you're probably gonna remember that better than my other names, which are pretty like generic. But yeah,
Okay.
I just kind of been using this for for quite a while.
And the avatar you're in, what makes you want to choose and wear that?
Oh, so I have. So you saw like my business avatar, right? That's like my one. That one was inspired from the one of the first models that I had ever, which was Chirano from Toho. Ice Fairy. She just happened to be one of the first models that successfully got in. Like I liked her as a character. I wasn't particularly like interested, but like when I got the avatar, I was like, oh, I like this, and I learned more about the character, and eventually like grew into the avatar you saw before. Here, actually, I'll just change into them when I'm talking about them because there's three. The second one's easy though. So this one here, like she's got the whole Ice-Wing aesthetic thing, but I also like robots, which will become apparent in some of the other ones. So yeah, I asked Digi, hey, I want to design and make a like mecha Chirano. And he did it. He knocked it out of the fucking park. This is great. I get so fed up with skirts, man. Like, look, it's all bunched up on my thigh. I've done so much like work on this, and like the camera will upskirt me. And I mean, there's nothing there. It's just a leotard underneath, but it's still kind of awkward. So I like robots. The character came from from that character. Then I have a version that I kind of use when I'm going out like to things like that. This is more of like a more kitbashy kind of deal. I've got a bunch of like logos here that are from friends and venues that I like and things that I like, from like friend logos, club logos, like this logo up here, which is from that manga I was talking about earlier, Blame. And then I got some of my favorite airplanes also right here, F-18, F-22, and F-35. And then also United Federation of Planets emblem, because I like Star Trek a lot.
You don't got the Raptor on there? What the hell?
No, I do.
What
The
the
Raptor's
hell?
Raptor is on the this side right here. That's the F-22.
Oh, okay. The F-22.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah. No
My
worries.
eyesight sucks.
Well, I mean, they're the like recognition silhouettes, right? It's like you're to pick them out or whatever. But yeah, this one's more of like This one's all like kitted out with like audio link and things like that because I just like playing around with systems that people are using for that kind of thing. And I also have the capability to like change out my shirt, so I have like a couple different logos on here that I can like change depending on where I am. This one's shelter. I've got like my own logo here. I've got tube on here as well. That kind of stuff. But yeah. But when I'm hanging around and like world hopping and stuff like that, or going to Publix, I've been using this avatar way more. This is Runa by Torian. They make a bunch of really cool avatars, but the reason why I like this one in particular is that they collaborated with an artist named In Radio Wave, who is an amazing artist. They draw lots of robot girls. They also draw not safe for work stuff, so just be forewarned if you go and look it up. But their art is very good. And one of their characters was basically like a crash test dummy robot named Runa. That had like gotten thrown out and like, you know, someone found her or something. Very Chobits if you're familiar with older anime. And they worked with Torian to make this avatar, and I've just customized the absolute shit out of it. Changed the hair, changed the legs, changed out the chest plate, did some stuff to the arms, put my little logos back on here as well. Again, it's just because I like robots. I especially like this one because I find myself enjoying and feeling better in this avatar for two reasons. It's more androgynous appearing. It's more of just kind of like a tabula rasa, very blank canvas as far as like identity. And also, digidegrade legs. I don't know why, but these feel so good to wear. Like I can't explain it, cannot rationalize it, but when I wear them and I when I have this avatar on and I'm standing up and I'm just like looking in the mirror and bouncing, I'm like, yeah, this is good. So I rigged up a fake like digidegrade setup and just been using it since. So there you go. I took longer with that one because I was short on the name one.
Oh, it's a-okay, and I very much appreciate learning about those things, because it's one everyone likes different avatars for various reasons, and I enjoy hearing all of them. So thank you.
Yeah. Of course. Oh wait, the reason why I like Chirano, she's stupid. She's
Oh.
full of herself. She's she's literally defined in the game manual for the game where she's introduced into the Toho series. Like there's a whole diagram of like the game scene, and one of them is her on the screen is labeled with a 9 with a circle around it, which is another Chirano meme, and it just says baka there, or idiot in Japanese. And her character traits are that she's overconfident, somehow still manages to get through situations even though she's like super overconfident, thinks she's the strongest, that kind of thing. And I don't know, I just resonate with that in a couple of different ways. It's very much like very lucky, somehow got to the place that they're at, but is ultimately just yet another idiot. She's especially an idiot, but that's okay.
Well, if the audience wishes to reach out and find you, where could they find you?
Let's see. Well, I think the best way is probably, unfortunately, via Twitter. It's where I go to shitpost. If you want bad opinions about a bunch of random things that you may or may not care about, I post there sometimes. I've also been more active on the VRChat subreddit lately. There's a lot of people there that like have questions and stuff like that, and I tend to swoop in and answer stuff there. You can also try messaging me on Discord, but as I think I mentioned to you, like Discord filters I did mention this earlier. Like it filters the heck out of my messages. But yeah, just like, I don't know, ping me on Twitter. It's probably the easiest way. You can send me a direct message there too. I typically dig through those.
Okay. Well, again, Tupper, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute honor learning all about you, your history, and your favorite anime.
yes.
So thank
you
for sharing everything with us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Appreciate you having me on. I am a fan of your interview style and like the way you guys have been doing these things. As I mentioned,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Very
there's a lot of ways to do the kind of like the free balling style, right? And you either are quite good at it or very much not. And you're quite good at it, so it was a pleasure.
I appreciate that
Yeah,
very much.
yeah.
Well,
oh boy.
before I hand it off to you, Mr. Raptor, to close us up, we'll ask the audience the question. We've heard Tupper's favorite anime, but what's yours? Raptor, you know the thing.
Yeah, I got you. No matter what, just like what Tupper says here, no matter what you put on for a skin, it might be fox, furry, whatever, and everything else like this. But Topper has one thing he didn't mention that he didn't say when he showed his feet. He doesn't have to worry about his toes being painted. We'll talk to you later, folks. Have a good one. Bye.